Justin Trudeau says he intends to resign as Liberal Party leader and Prime Minister of Canada. His announcement this morning comes after months of pressure from within his own Liberal Party.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
This is a huge shift. He was party leader for 11 years. He was prime minister for 9. He was elected 3 times, Martha, but the political writing was on the wall when the Conservative Party took a 20-point lead over the Liberal Party in the upcoming elections.
Well, I think what's fascinating about this is looking at what I think broadly you can say is the end of the Obama era here at home and also in international politics, and the rebirth again here of the Trump era and the kind of pressure that we're seeing in other countries for more conservative movement. You've got 27 countries in the EU that have moved to the right. Here at home, 90% of counties moved to the right. And when you think about Trudeau, you think about him, the blockade, the truckers' blockade against the vaccine mandates in Canada. You think about his constant push for climate change while housing prices were rising and inflation was rising in Canada, being out of touch essentially with what was on people's minds and what was concerning Canadians. And so he's paying the price for that. I think we're seeing a lot of foreign leaders pay the price for that. There is this Pierre Poilievre, who is likely, he's sort of called the Canadian Trump. And it's going to be very interesting to see if there's support for him and if President Trump has sort of a more kindred spirit north of the border.
Yeah, and Emily, it's funny because, you think about recent history and Trudeau goes down to Mar-a-Lago. Trump takes this swipe and talks about Canada being the 51st state and he's welcome to be the governor. And then Trudeau kind of bit back in maybe a little bit of hubristic way. Watch this.
The United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist.
I mean, I guess he'll be a proud feminist from the sidelines.
Yeah, exactly, from his unemployed couch. Look, I think the reality is that he sort of sailed into office on the coattails of his father's performance. And as he promised sunny ways for Canada, he wanted to combat climate change. He wanted to restore Indigenous people's rights. He wanted to do things like stand with feminists. But the reality is that the country fell apart economically. So those things are, the Indigenous people's equality is absolutely paramount. But the things like combating climate change, these sort of fluff things paled in comparison to those under his watch that were struggling to put food on the table. And when you coupled that with his regulatory hammer, I mean, that was an incredible fist for him to rule with, and it didn't make any sense. And you remember that viral moment where he interacted with a steelworker, I believe, who said, you're not really doing anything for us, Justin. And that sort of became the tenor of that entire country that said, you have not done anything for us other than stand at your pulpit with these sort of platitudes, sort of similar to a Gavin Newsom, And I think the other reality is that the global support for this movement, Poilievre's, the 20% lead of the Conservative movement over his Liberal Party is astronomical. And now you're seeing that support reflected in Elon Musk, in others, as you said earlier, with Donald Trump's party and people and community, which are seeing that and just across the board, regardless of international lines saying you need to be able to have a robust way to earn a livelihood and to stimulate economic growth and prosperity, or everything else falls apart.
Jeremy, in the trucker protests early 2022 that Martha mentioned, that was huge. They were protesting public health mandates during COVID. And they had this Emergencies Act in Canada, passed in 1988, never before used. But oh, wait, Justin Trudeau uses it. Then there's this Bloomberg headline that banks were collecting information on the truckers. It was positively Orwellian, the way the Freedom Convoy was treated.
That's exactly right. We've even heard some reports of their bank accounts being frozen for some of the truckers. Yeah. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. And honestly, this show is a cautionary tale for leaders in power. If you start to get disconnected from the people that you have been elected to represent, you will not, you won't stay in office for long. And honestly, it was funny. I have a little kind of anecdotally, I saw this firsthand with Justin Trudeau. But when I was in Ukraine training the Ukrainian armed forces, we had Canadian service members who were there with us, and Justin Trudeau came to visit. So he comes to a military base, where his service members are deployed. Showing up, he's got, no tie on. He's got just a blazer, his aviators on, khaki, just like hanging out. He takes one picture with them and says that they can't come and approach him afterwards. They were not even allowed to, I don't even know if they were able to shake his hand, some of the kind of rank and file soldiers. And I just thought, like, that's something you would never see from President Trump, for example. And President Trump, he shakes every member's hand, and he's connected to people. And that's what Justin Trudeau is missing. And that's ultimately why you see him resigning today.
Fascinating. Yeah, the Secret Service, Harris, has to beg Trump not to go out into the crowd.
Exactly.
So kind of opposite.
Yeah, I remember the all-women town hall. He drove in. It was like a mosh pit. Gosh, that sounds like an aristocracy. I had no idea he had that. What you said, though, Martha, resonated with me so much because he's like Biden. He's out of touch. This isn't like an age thing. This is a political thing. Yeah. Biden could have been 50. It wouldn't have mattered. Could have been 30, 38. Wouldn't have mattered. He was out of touch. And a guest last hour, Cassie Smedley, who was the deputy communications team director for the RNC, told me something really interesting. This has been going on for 20 years. Well, just think 12 of the last 16 Democrats have been in the White House. So this is kind of instilled. This wasn't just a fumble on the football field one weekend and then everybody voted on November 5th. This was baked into their bloodstream as Democrats. I don't know that you shake that right away. And so even when they replaced Justin Trudeau to the north in the Liberal Party, there was one woman, I guess he wasn't quite far left enough, Chrystia Freeland, who was his deputy prime minister. She quit. The person who replaced her, Dominic LeBlanc, well, he wasn't happy either. He took over for her. They're a couple of the front runners in this for the Liberal Party. I don't know if it's your politics that are broken. If you're out of touch with people, as you said, Martha, who cares who they replace him with? It's got to be somebody else. And again, I keep saying, those hundreds of miles of border up there that have to be secure. This is a national security issue. We need somebody up north we can actually talk to and have action done with. It's not going to be him. I doubt it's going to be anybody in his party.
Yeah. And maybe the next Prime Minister of Canada won't take swipes at the entire American population for not having a woman in charge. Okay.